So thank you for, first of all, taking time from a holiday to sit and listen to someone who is going to rant for the next 1 hour. So there's still time for people who are not interested. You can still walk away now. The doors are open. But yeah, first of all, so it's my honor, and I'm extremely humbled to be here. Right. So thank you, Adeline. Thank you, you got to have me here. So I passed out of NUS in 2011, if I remember right. I started the course in 2008, NUS-ISS, and then I passed out. I completed it on time. So it was tough, but a fantastic experience. I presume most of you are going through or are already done it. So I wish you all the best for that. Okay, so it's definitely a journey worth having. So there's nothing that can, the day you get your certificates, there's nothing that can be better than that. Trust me, I say that from experience. Okay, so what do I do? So I've been working in the banking industry for the past 25 years. So I started my career with Citibank as a programmer. I was a consultant. Then I moved to Singapore. I started my career in India. So then I moved to Standard Chartered. Then I moved to Vietnam. So, but essentially I've lived in almost 10 countries. So that's my background. Primarily, my areas of interest and focus are digital data analytics. That's been my focus areas, and I've been in banks throughout my career. So while the topic today is going to be on data, digital, and transformation, it's going to be more from a context of banking as an industry. So the examples that you'll see is primarily to do with banking. To ensure that I give you the right set of information, I've made sure there are actually two people. One, my better half, is sitting there, so that I don't give you lies, whatever I know. And then I brought my colleague also from Vietnam, who is also an NUS alumni. He's sitting behind me there, LQ. So I have two checks and balances to make sure that whatever information is distilled to you is actually given the right set of, given the right bearings. Okay, without much ado, let's start. So how many of you, truth be told, how many of you heard of Techcombank? Is the clicker moving? Oops. The clicker, okay, one person, you're Vietnamese, so two, not bad. Three, not bad. Half, 3.5. Four, 4.5. Okay, it moves. Okay, clicker moves. Thanks. Okay. So Techcombank, honestly, when I got the call for interview, I hadn't heard of Techcombank. So you don't need to feel ashamed, lah. So when I did get the call, as I was telling some of you prior, when I was having my breakfast, lunch or whatever, or snack or whatever. So I had an offer from HSBC at the same time in Hong Kong and from Vietnam. And my wife was pretty sure that I would be taking the Hong Kong offer, but I ended up in Vietnam. So the reality of the situation is, I think if I had to go back and make the decision again, the answer would be yes. So Techcombank, it's a relatively young bank by Singapore standards, but relatively old by Vietnam standards. It's 30 years old. This is going to be our 30th anniversary. We have 11 million customers. For 11 million, so to give you some size of that, DBS has close to 6 million. So we are almost double the size of DBS. And then we have 12,000 employees. So this is not a neobank or a startup, as many people call themselves bank. But then how many employees? 2, 3, 4 or 10. So we have 12,000 employees, and we have more than 300 branches. And last year, I think due to the hard work of obviously the people before us, I didn't contribute much, but I think the legacy that all the people have laid, we crossed $1 billion in profit, $1 billion in profit, US dollars, not dong or some other dollars, Singapore dollars, US dollars in profit. And our ROA is close to 3.2%. For those who are familiar with all these financial terminologies, ROA is return on asset. So our Singaporean banks or mature market banks, can anyone hazard a guess what would be the typical ROA? World leading banks, what's the typical ROA in a mature market? Can anyone hazard a guess? No one? It's around 1 to 1.1%. That would be great. So 3.2 is your return on asset. That's a huge number. So we got a lot of awards, and like I said, this is all due to the testimony to the hard work done by the people prior to me. So I don't lay claim to any of these. But I'm extremely happy with the journey that we've had so far. So our mission and vision is out there, but I truly like our vision, which is very deep, and I think I'm a strong believer in it, because As part of the management team, I was responsible for crafting that also. So if you ask me, that's something that I'm pretty passionate about. So change banking, change lives. So we strongly believe that banking can be a medium to not only change people's life, but also change and transform a country. So that's our belief. That's our bank. That's what it is. Okay. So there's one Vietnamese Singaporean here. So he will probably be able to relate to the photos. But for this, I mean, for the rest of you who, I was giving the anecdote of our founding father, Lee Kuan Yew, right? And he kept saying, Singaporeans need to move out of Singapore to see the real Singapore and see the opportunities, right? And I mean, Singapore is a fantastic country. Don't get me wrong, right? I'm Singaporean, so my family is very much here, and I think we will definitely we have nothing but the best to say. But the reality is, ASEAN is not the same. ASEAN is growing. ASEAN is expanding. And Vietnam, in my humble opinion, is probably at the forefront of the change that's happening in ASEAN. Why? So let me talk about three factors, right? The first is the macro. And when I say macro, it's all about economy. So Vietnam's population is pretty young, and it's got a population of 99.6 million or 100 million. Let's round it off, give or take a few, right? They will hit 100 shortly. When India can hit 1 billion, they can definitely hit a few millions easily. The reality is 60% of that are less than 35 years old. Pretty young population, pretty huge population, right? So that's number one. Number two, I think they have a population that actually wants to grow and learn. They skip the generation. What I mean by skip the generation is they never use checks. We all are familiar with the concepts of PDC, post-dated check. Vietnamese never used checks. They went right from physical to digital to mobile. So that's where they are. And if you look at the country where it was, it's got a mix of both the old cultural identity with what's happening. And I was just talking about how Saigon, Ho Chi Minh, which is the new, this thing, is changing in front of our eyes. The way that Vietnam is changing is unprecedented. And the people are extremely smart, hardworking, and they want to learn. I think the key thing here is the ability and the need to learn. They have a very open mind and want to imbibe. That's what Vietnam is. That's what is driving Vietnam. The macro, it's got a very good, stable political outlook and a spirit of entrepreneurship. So that's why Vietnam is what Vietnam is. That's Techcombank and a brief about what Vietnam is. So let me start off with, my topic today is I'm going to talk about data, digital, and transformation. So let me ask a simple question. What is transformation? There's no right and wrong answer here. So and it's not going to be used in your final year project assessment. So your chief promised me that. So, but those who answer will be considered for better marks. That's what she told me. So what is transformation? No, in anything. That's transformation. Yeah. No, why not? Why not? Yeah. Any other? What else? Fantastic. Changing from one state to another. Very good. Very true. Very true. Anything else? Changing for the better. Very good. Excellent. Changing for the better, changing from one state. He said ETL, which is extract, transform, load, with a very technical term, which is good. But still, like I said, there's no wrong answers. What else? What else? What about the lady? What is transformation? Making competition irrelevant. Very true. Very, very true. Right? Yeah. Transformation is being any other points. What is transformation? Do more with less. Very, very true. Very true. Very true. What you all said is true. What you all said is true. Transformation is all this put together. But I think the key, if there's one key message I want you to take from this presentation, is the definition of transformation from what we use from an industry perspective, and which, it's not my definition. This is what as a bank, we believe in. This is what my boss has imbibed in us. Our CEO, who is my boss, he's so passionate about it that it's just ingrained in me. Transformation is all about value creation. It's simple. Can you create value? It's what you just said. Transformation is moving from one state to other. It's what you said, doing more with less. But at the end of it, what should it lead to? It's also ETL. You're right. You extract, you transform, you load. And it's about wiping out competition. What she said is right. But at the end of it, you should create value. That's what is transformation. So if you're able to measure and create value. So you're all learning, you're all MTech digital students, you're all entrepreneurs, you're all, you're all employees in your own right. But transformation is all about, if you have to remember one key takeaway from my presentation today, remember this. How do you create value? That is the key to success. That is the key to transformation, because people forget about it. Transformation is, I have a very good new app, have a sexy looking new app with a new screen. Great, I've transformed myself. I bought this new cool toy. Like you said, ETL now, we have another new toy. There's Databricks, there's Snowflake. Oh, there's this new, now there's Hadoop. Now there's Cloudera. You can call all technologies. Buying that is not transformation. It's value creation. Okay. So let's talk about what we are doing at Techcom. So what I'm sharing is a real life story. So this is, I'm here to tell you our story so far. It's a journey. The story is no way complete. Again, stuck. I have to point somewhere. Yeah. Okay. So again, I take no credit for this strategy. It was laid down by my boss, the CEO. So he came from McKinsey, he's ex-McKinsey, super smart guy, obviously. So he laid down this, and then it's so simple at the heart of it when you distill, right? What our strategy, our bank strategy, this is our 5-year strategy. This is what we want to achieve. We want to obviously pivot over a period of time. But our strategy is centered around 3 key pillars: digital, data, and talent, right? This is our transformation strategy. At the end of it, all 3 need to come together. It's not just them being standalone entities. How do they come together to create customer impact, or CVP's customer value proposition? How do you actually, that's what I call about value creation. This is about value proposition. At the end of it, having a strategy is not about just having a new skin. How can these pillars work together to create this? Writing every bank, I'm sure, or every organization, I'm probably talking from a banking perspective, but if you take any other industry or take any other organization, they would have it in some form, shape. But the key is, how does it all come together to create this? That is the secret sauce. And that is important, right? Like I said, digital, it's all about cloud. How do you have the best technologies? Obviously, you need to scale. You need to have the latest and greatest tools. You spoke about those. That's very important. And how do you use data to differentiate? How can it be the sauce that differentiates good to great? Because at the end of it, everybody can copy products, but what they cannot copy is data. What I know about my customers, the other competitor will not know about that. That is the key. And how do I bring that to play? That is equally important. And obviously, all this can be good talk, but if you didn't have the right people, and you can have a workforce of 12,000 people, you can have 20,000 people, you can have 20 people. But if you have the best people, you can do magic. So in my humble opinion, I think this is probably the most understated people, because there's a lot of emphasis on digital. You have to be analytics, data, LLM, AI, chat GPT. Now we have all, we can generative AI. We have now CNN, RNN. We can talk neural networks. We can go deep. Then that's my job. So you can talk, but people forget about how important talent is. That's extremely important. As you all start becoming leaders in your own right, lay more emphasis on this. Okay. So I'll try to peel, like I told you, that's our strategy, that's our story. That's what our bank uses as a Bible to drive growth and drive our strategy. So let's peel the first one. What's so unique about data? I mean, the word data itself is unique, right? I mean, like I said, because the data for every organization is unique in its own way. No organization's data can be replicated, and you all know this. So I'm not going to sit here and preach that we live in a data economy. Data is oil. Data is an asset. You, ladies and gentlemen, know all about that. But what I can tell you is, I hate the word data as an asset. Being a chief data analytics officer, I hate that term, because what do you do with an asset? What do you do with an asset? What do you do with an asset? You get to, many people try to do that. Yeah. But what do you do with an asset typically? What do you do with an asset? Sorry? Sit there. You're right, actually. Sit there, asset. You put there. You store it. You store it. Right? And that's what people historically did with data. People historically, you're right, actually. People take the data, store it. That's what they do with their assets. And the word data as an asset means I take tons of data. The whole idea is how much data can I get? How rich can I be in data? I don't know anything about the data, but I want to have all data. I want to have rich data, but I don't know how to use it. I just want data. Let me gobble up as much data as possible. That's what we were doing. So that's why I hate the word data as an asset. I would rather prefer data as a product. That's a much more intuitive construct. That's much more a meaningful construct. The word asset has been over abused. Data is the new oil. Data is gold. Even I have used the term in many presentations. I've spoken in conferences in New York and all those. I said data is oil, data is oxygen. I've given a lot of mantra and yeah, but I have also relearned over a period of time that it's good. I mean, nothing wrong with those statements, but the reality is unless you actually create value, going back to the what I told you, if you're not creating value from it, you might be asset rich, insights poor. You might have tons of data, you don't know what to do with it. So that's why what is most important, our principles, these were our guiding principles. We wanted to make sure that we don't miss out any part of data. And I hate this term big data, small data, because I mean, I've been living in the data world for the last 25 years. So I've seen the evolution of data. So when big data came in, I really still hated that term, which meant that other data wasn't that important. And mercifully, I've been proven right. Every piece of information is important. So whether it's big, small, teeny, good, bad, ugly, if you ask me, every piece of information that's not there, and I can tell you every piece of information that you can sense and not sense, data is paramount. In fact, there is a saying that I live by: more data trumps smarter algorithms. I repeat, more data trumps smarter algorithms. It's not my saying. It's actually a research by a gentleman named Gabriel Reka, who that was the genesis for actually Google, right? So what it essentially means is if I gave you 50% good data and 100% good algorithms, or if I gave you 100% good data and 50% algorithms, right algorithms, which one would you choose? 90% of the people would say, give me the right algorithm. But the truth is, data always kills algorithms. The whole thing is, when I say kills it, more data will actually tell whether algorithms good or bad. So very less people think about data in that sense. So that's why I tell you, capturing every single piece of information for us is important. As a bank, is that our principle? Jolly well else. But are we doing that? And truth be told, we are not there yet. We are doing it, but those are our principles. We are building a hybrid data lake, which captures data both in batch and real time. But every customer interaction, every piece of information, the surrounding ecosystem data, every piece of information is piped into it. The second is, I mean, the whole idea is once you get information, like I said, if you just store it, it's useless. You can collect information till cows come home. But if you don't then drive habitual usage, if you don't drive meaningful conversations, if you don't drive meaningful outcomes, if you don't engage the customer, no point. I think the other key point with data is, I mean, as much as you collate it, how fast can you distribute it for people to make decisions? You can centralize data easily, but then can you actually distribute it to the organization, to all the staff and employees to create impact at scale? And then obviously the last is the most difficult, but I mean the most impactful. Can data actually tell you that your revenue models itself, what you're doing is incorrect, and can it dictate new revenue models? Basically, instead of trusting your gut, can you trust data? It's easier said than done. 90% of us, me being on the management team also, sometimes I love to use data, I love data, but sometimes I say, okay, I think I know better than data. And I'm prone to it, and we are all humans. But can we reach a stage where you can say the tail wags the dog? Can data tell you that, hey, even though your intuition is this is, and that's where AI is today driving. Today, if you look at all the buzz around AI, if you look at why the world is getting so scared, because what we thought we didn't want people to know is actually becoming reality, where tons of data being fed through LLMs is saying that, guys, you wanted to use your intuition to say this was incorrect, but the data tells me that that's wrong. So new revenue models is probably the most toughest one, but that's something that we are pushing for. And how are we improving? See, I think the first is I told you what are our guiding principles, and then how are we actually improving? This is again peeling the onion a little further. I mean, for those who are familiar with analytics, this shouldn't come as a surprise. You must have heard the term feature store. How do you build a better feature store? Our ability to reuse products, or our ability to reuse definitions, or our ability to reuse terminologies that can be consistent across the bank. So if someone develops a feature in one division and it has created impact, can that same feature usefulness be replicated at scale across multiple divisions? So the feature store is all about having a library of features which can be deployed and reused at scale. I mean, I put in the term better modeling techniques, but you are all obviously smart and technical enough to realize it's just easier said than done. But again, there are enough models now. If you ask what a data scientist does, once upon a time, the whole definition was extremely sexy. It's still sexy. I think it's a great job. But many of us try to force fit variable to define into a model which is pre-existing, to just target an output. What is my target variable? How can I squeeze out of it? Rather than trying to actually understand data and do it. But there are plenty of good modeling techniques available in the market today, which is actually changing the paradigm quite a lot, right? So, I mean, earlier it was all about, okay, a propensity model. Okay, now people say, okay, gradient boost was the one. Now, actually, you can run multiple models at scale, right? So, yeah, we can talk a lot about it, but modeling techniques have improved tremendously. I can't emphasize enough on the richness of data. I told you internal, external. I also told you my mantra, personal mantra: more data trumps smarter algorithms. As much data as you can get, lay your hands on. Internal, external, doesn't matter. Obviously, there are ethics, there are rules involved in it. I don't mean to say you need to gobble up every piece of information. You need to follow your organization's construct for it. But obviously, this will be a differentiating factor. You're having machine learning AI at scale, because having one model, I say, yeah, this is good. And right now, if you ask me where the organization is, at least from a bank's perspective, we have 11 models in production, but each of these models does a specific task. Can we truly deploy AI and machine learning models at scale? That's something that's a holy grail. We want to do it. Organizations that are truly successful in exploiting AI are there. We are not there yet. We want to get there yet. Obviously, the diverse experience really helps. I was again telling Yanwa, and I was telling others prior to this meeting that while we were sitting and having a drink, that the whole strength of the team is probably the diversity. Because having a set of straight thinkers is not going to help you understand data analytics, digital, or transformation for that matter better. So you need a diverse set of people. And how do you harness these together, right? How do you harness these capabilities together? And lastly, where does this all drive to? I personally think from a banking perspective, there is tons of jobs that will get automated over a period of time. Is the world at risk because of AI? I mean, there are a school of thought, and I still think there has to be ethics, and you have to govern properly. We can talk about it. That's a whole subject on its own. There is guidelines. We can go into all that. But I think if we don't weaponize AI, dare I say that, and if we make sure that it is used for the right purposes, I think there's a huge productivity lift that we can all get. We all know. And even if I can tell you another real anecdote. One of my friend's son wanted to start off as a paralegal from a law firm, and his internship was taken away. Why? ChatGPT coming in, what does a paralegal do? Read documents and make recommendation. ChatGPT can do that better than a paralegal. So he needs to start using it, and he needs to figure out what next way can he start adding value. So I think the reality of the situation is jobs will get displaced. That is the truth. We cannot shy away from it. What will happen is that in the same way, new jobs will get created. But the big thing is, will the future of banking get disrupted by AI? Absolutely yes. Will there be an AI bank of the future? Absolutely yes. And I think you need to have the right wirings and trappings to ensure that you get there. So we spoke about one of the pillars. So let's move to the second pillar, digital. I mean, data on its own, I always keep saying, can never be successful, because data is it's a foundation. It's like I need it. But if it's good, if your heart, if you have a skin or this thing, right? At the end of it, you need to have a body, you need to have dress, you need to wear a face, you need to have whatever you need to have. And I think digital is probably the most important aspect when it comes to bringing these pieces together. That's where all this converges. And I mean, I can't I can't emphasize enough on how being digital, just not in banking, but in every industry, has transformed the outreach. I spoke about analytics at scale, reach at scale. When you want to personalize at scale, when you want to reach out to people at scale, is only possible because of digital. So I think the role of digital in banking, especially if you take Vietnam as a country, as I told you, right, 99.6 million people. We have 300 plus 350 branches, but we see less and less footfall in the branches. We see more and more people using, because mobile phones have become synonymous. Everybody has a smartphone, right? And he or she does all their actions on their mobile phone. So there's no need for you to have so many branches. The reality is, yes, branches are still relevant, but the definition of branches in banking is changing. If you look at DBS, right? Have you all gone to the latest DBS or Standard Chartered branch here in Marina Bay? Anyone went there? It looks more like a coffee shop. Have you all gone there and seen? It looks more like a coffee shop than a branch. And that's what I think the future of banking branches will be, where branches banking is just one more, but you will go there, probably there'll be a tutor to teach your kids something about banking. I don't know, but banking branches will not be the same. So the whole idea is the role of digital will kind of push and change how banking is being done currently and in future. The whole thing is about personalization. And that, I think, if you ask me what there's as much as I told you about value creation and as much as you spoke about analytics at scale, AI, the key thing about digitalization is personalization. Can I have hyper personalization? Why do I attach myself to my phone? Because I know it is unique. I know where to find what app. I need to know what I press and what I get. And I know what, if I customize my page, it'll look like that. It's personal. It's to me, right? I think that attachment is what creates that bond. So personalization is the biggest tick mark that you all need to remember from a digital perspective. And obviously, it needs to be relevant and useful. I mean, I don't need to emphasize on that, but that's equal. The other thing is about relevant, embedded in day to day, right? I think how ubiquitous can it be? I mean, I have an app, but if the app is relevant, useful, it's okay. But is it easy to use? And is it actually helping me in my day to day usage? But that's why nowadays you see these super apps coming up, right? Grab is touting itself to be the super app. What does super app mean? Be all, do all. I can do everything for you. Don't need anyone else. I mean, but that's where they're going. Their next level of hyper personalization is to say one-stop shop for you to have everything. And that's in my day to day, whether you want to call a doctor. If you look at Indonesia, if you look at Vietnam, if you look at the apps that are being built, you can call a doctor, you can call a concierge, you can book air tickets. You can do everything and anything, right? That's where you can see the convergence of finance, retail, all this come together. That's only possible in digital. The third point is about scalability. And in digital, the whole mantra is, if you cannot scale, it's not digital. I mean, if you're going, it needs to be hyper personalized, but you need to scale. And when I say scale, I'm not talking hundreds or thousands. I'm talking millions and billions. That is scale. And that's what digital needs to achieve. And that's the beauty of digital, right? You don't need to keep building again and again. And the last is, obviously, when you do all this together, you have various ways of working that will get disrupted. We were joking about, again, prior to this, talking agile. It's a buzzword, right? I sometimes call it fragile. So it's not agile. So it's more fragile than agile, because people use this so much that people don't know what they're doing sometimes. Should I give a BRD? There's no BRD. What is definition of done? Am I done or not done? Is the requirement still there? Who is the Scrum Master? I don't know what all these terminologies are. People get so confused with terminologies, and people don't actually look at the outcome. But effectively what it does is, how can you remove barriers to achieve efficiency? That's the ways of working. So the role of digital in banking is transforming how people actually work, how people engage with their devices, and more importantly, how people engage with products and services. Again, like I told you, mine is unfortunately, while you are a diverse bunch of MTech students, this is primarily focused on banking, right? So again, if you just take the banking landscape I mean, take any country, even take Singapore. Singapore is an overbanked population. Any idea how many bank accounts per person an average Singaporean has? Any guesses? 3 to 4. 3. You're right. Actually, 3 to 4. That's, imagine, bank accounts. I myself have Post B, POSB. I mean, when I opened Trust POSB, now it is TBS, then UOB, OCBC. All the local ones you tick lah. Then Stanchart, have one for international because you're traveling. Send any Citibank I used to work, keep it open, okay lah. Already you end up with 5. And then, oh, CIMB has a good offer. We had to open an account. Okay, let me open. Sometimes I don't even remember. But that is the reality. And now with this digital banks, I mean, I have nothing against digital banks. Trust me, I love competition and I think digital banks are great. But there is a difference being calling yourself a neo bank, a digital bank, and then there is a question about saying, what is the path to profitability? Am I truly creating value? I go back to a fundamental question. If you're a bank, if you're a digital bank, great. Are you creating value? What is your path to profitability? In Singapore itself, you must have all seen the news recently. Ant has launched a bank, right? Trust, Standard Chartered launched, my former employers, great, I think. And now Grab is launching one, great. I mean, I've lost track of how many people want to launch digital banks. And I have, like I said, I have nothing against them. But at the end of it, my fundamental question remains the same. Whom are you banking? Your population is the same. So the guy who the question that we should ask is, how much revenue are you earning from each customer? Nobody will tell you that. I can tell you. No digital bank will disclose that. The reality is, till you're profitable, you're just going to give numbers that everyone, because data can mask anything and everything. That's the power of data. As much as I told you, I have 11 million customers. When in my first slide, the reality is, out of that, only 7 million are truly active. 4 million are inactive. Same way in digital banking, I can open an account, but if I don't transact, I mean, people will just say he's kept an account, he's still an account holder. So the reality which I want to tell you is, what I'm trying to tell you here is, give you 2 messages through this slide. The first is, there are multiple forms to move to do digital transformation in banking. You can open a challenger bank, you can have a digital bank offshore, you can have banking as a service, you can have digitized hybrid banks, and you can have more other flavors. These are broad flavors, right? These are an incumbent or a new banking or a subsidiary. There are different ways to do banking. But the key idea is, there is only 2 ways to which you can achieve this. How? You use data and you use digital channels. Now, everything, as you see, has a flavor that uses data or digital to drive outcome. So the key mantra here is, I mean, at the end of it, you might call yourself a challenger bank, you might call yourself a neo bank, you might call, I'm a BaaS player, I only do banking as a service. The key here is, data and digital are the differentiators, are the drivers, are the only things that can help you with your existence. Now, if any digital bank can say, came and told me, data and digital, barring this, have done something, I would be really, I mean, these are the tenets. So no one would disagree. But what I'm trying to say is, there's much more than this. There is a path to profitability. That's a separate discussion. And like I told you, what is the unique value? Why should I bank with, say, Ant Bank that opens a digital bank here? Why should I bank with Trust Bank? What is it that DBS cannot give? Sorry, yeah. Sure, sure. And I think Apple will come out with a bank. They've already partnered with Goldman Sachs in US to create a retail bank. They've been in the business for quite some time. And in fact, Apple can buy almost all banks in the world that it thinks with the reserve cash it has and still have some spare change left. So with the amount of cash that Apple, free cash I'm talking about, Apple has, it can choose. In Singapore, let me buy DBS and OCBC. And then in Germany, let me buy Deutsche Bank. It can. And while the reality of the situation is, that's why I told you, there will be convergence of players. And when I say players, it's not banking players. There will be convergence of deep tech, there will be convergence of retail, there will be convergence of banks, all will come together at some point of time. And when I say come together, because at the end of it, if you look at what Apple's core business, bulk of its profit comes from, obviously, you all know this, iPhone. And obviously, it's trying to diversify its source of income. But what it is also smart enough to know is how ubiquitous going back iPhone is and trying to build an ecosystem around iPhone. And why does it want a bank? Not because it likes banking. It doesn't want to be governed. Banking is not easy. You need to have capital, you need to have regulation, etc. But what is the flow business that I can get out of banking? How easy can I shift the pain to someone else while I retain the cream? Right? So we can have that. I mean, I'm happy to explain in detail Apple's this thing, but specifically to answer your question, yes, you will see more and more players interested because banking historically has been clunky. Banking has been something that people pay a huge price for, and people will try to disrupt it because it's the lowest hanging fruit of the value chain. As it gets disrupted more and more, then it goes up and becomes tougher. So yes, Apple will enter, and I foresee more players also entering the market. Yeah, but like I said, banks everywhere, not a place to bank. So I personally think in Singapore, it is overbanked. But if you again spread your lens to a more bigger macro, you go to Vietnam, go to Philippines, the people are underbanked. So why is this important from a digital perspective? Not to apply that same lens everywhere. As you all learn through your courses, as you all start your careers, what is applicable to Singapore that may not be applicable to Vietnam or Philippines. Because Vietnam and Philippines are heavily underbanked. In Vietnam, people still hide cash under their pillows. You can ask my friend here. That's the reality. I'm not kidding you. I want to share this anecdote with you. I met with the head of Visa in Vietnam. Visa, you all know, right? Visa payments. And she told me in 2005, Santhosh, I got my bonus. I had to pass one bag to my brother. I had to pass one bag to my mother. I took one bag home. So the reality is people still transacted in cash. People still transact in cash. In Vietnam also, we have Grab and all these people. The last leg, when you do the payment, they come and then they collect cash. Why is it not the journey end to end fully digitized? Because of lack of trust in the system, or people don't want to be found, or people are happy, comfortable with cash. Multiple factors. We can keep talking about it. But that's why I call it phygital. Digital plus physical. Physical plus digital. Phygital. That's the economy. As much as we talk about digital transformation, ladies and gentlemen, another key takeaway, we will live in a phygital world for the foreseeable future. Till everyone can start interacting digitally, seamlessly, there'll be friction in the system. We all talk about it a lot, but we are not there yet. Okay. So, yeah. How do you differentiate? You have all these banks, etc. How do you differentiate, right? I think I've spoken about this, hyper-personalization. You need to obviously make sure that you are getting into, able to understand the customers, use the data to differentiate, but obviously you need to have a data-driven engagement. If you don't have data, if you're not engaging customers, you cannot this thing. Obviously, how do you communicate to different channels? You need to measure and you need to change operating models. This is all a summary of what I just said. You have data, you have digital, but end of it, you need to bring both together to differentiate. If you still copied what the other person was doing, you will be okay, but you will not be able to differentiate. The key is this, if you ask me, is the secret sauce. And this you need to figure out. How, as you go through each of your organization, how do I bring my building block? The Lego blocks are the same, my friends. The Lego blocks the cards, when I say the cards are different, but Lego blocks are the same, is you're all given packs of Lego. Whether you build a house, whether you build a farm, whether you build, you build a hut, or whether you build a car, it all depends. So what you can do with your digital data and your capabilities and the market share and the segment is in your hands. But you can use it to actually make a big difference. So that's what it is. But the key things is have unified insights and data through the brain, which I would always recommend to make sure that your bank is able to orchestrate. We try to do that. So we try to make sure that data plays an important part in actually orchestrating data in decision flows. We want to be faster. We are not there. And I think we are really pushing the boundaries. We are really trying to say that, hey guys and girls, are we doing the right thing? We are challenging ways of working. As much as I make fun of Agile, more than Agile, I just want to remove barriers. I want to work smoothly. We want to remove hierarchies. And it's tough in a culture like Vietnam, etc. People are hardworking, but people also are very, like every other Asian culture, they look forward to advice. They wait for advice. All that needs to change. And we want to scale at cost. Obviously, we don't want to increase our cost base. And real-time customer journey orchestration. That's a mouthful, but very tough to achieve, right? What it means is, can I have an ubiquitous experience when I log in and I'm in the midst of my journey, and then I find out that my preferences have changed? And can you understand the customer to make sure that you're able to cater to his whims or fancies? Real time. Think about it. I came in to buy, say, grocery, but I ended up buying a car. It's an extreme example. That's real-time customer journey orchestration. Can I understand and then cater and drive the customer towards what that customer is thinking? Am I able to cater to it? Not direct, but definitely. Okay, I think now I'm going to give you some learnings and probably share some, how do you go about it? I think intent is most important. Again, we were discussing prior to this, right? A lot of my presentation, some of the thoughts came in our earlier discussion. One of the key things is it has to come from the top. You need to have a clear strategic intent. If you ask all my colleagues at the management table, the 15 of us, what is your strategy? Every one of us would give the mantra. If you ask the 12,000 employees, everyone would give the clear mantra. Every one of us know our 3 pillars are data, digital, and talent. You ask the cleaner, the watchman, and I'm not making fun in a bad way. Every one of them know what it is. Of course, do they know how it impacts? That's different. But the reality of the situation is their ability to understand that we have a strategic agenda that cuts across these 3 pillars is important. So it's important from the top to distill the message to the bottom. Having the clear strategic intent and then getting the message across to the troops, very, very important. Like I told you, I don't think the board and C-level, without that level of alignment, do we have our disagreements? Yes, we disagree, but we commit. So we do have, in fact, my boss tells we are not disagreeing enough. We need to disagree more. But I would always believe that we need to disagree, but commit. You need to have healthy debates, but you need to commit. And I think whenever you have a lot of partners, like we partner with AWS, I'm sure you all must be familiar with AWS. And then I'm speaking at the AWS Summit the day after tomorrow in Marina Bay Sands. So this AWS as a partner has been extremely helpful for us in our journey. But we wanted Andy Jassy to be a sponsor for us. So when we said it's not about having the top dog, but to make sure that he understands what it means for Techcom, what it means for Vietnam. So making sure that when you partner with someone like AWS, you have sponsorship. When we were evaluating this, we also had meetings with Sundar Pichai and Thomas Cherian, who is Google Cloud CEO. We wanted to meet these people. We might be a small fish. We may not be Citibank, we might not be JP Morgan, but we wanted to make sure that the people whom we are buying our products from understand what our aspiration is. We wanted to make sure that they know that this is what we want to partner, this is what we want to achieve. It is not about changing Techcombank or making Techcombank agile and making money for the bank. It's about how we impact Vietnam as an economy. That was the message we gave. Yeah, understand it's a journey. Like people always think, and this is so funny. And I was speaking in an earlier forum last month, I think, and then people said, how do you know you have successfully transformed? And my answer is, it's very difficult to answer that question because for the simple reason, transformation is a journey. You will just move from a state to another state. But is that the destination? No. No. You might have kept yourself a target. But once you reach there, you might say, hey, there's something else going to happen. That is the beauty of transformation. Understanding that equally is important. If you thought after 5 years you're done, your journey is done, then I think you've gotten the whole plot wrong. What you should understand is transformation helps you to get better. Someone mentioned at the beginning of this thing, how can I get better today than I was yesterday? Someone mentioned that. That is part of the transformation journey. How was I here? How did I come here? How did I get better? Obviously, when you're transforming and we are working, when you're transforming the economy, you're not just looking at because like I told you, the bank's mission is to change banking, change life. We are not looking at ourselves as a company that wants to make profits. How can you truly help Vietnam grow and put Vietnam on the map? There will be some tough decisions. We will have to work closely with regulators. And what I mean by tough decisions is obviously take a simple one, cloud. cloud doesn't have a local region in Vietnam. But Vietnam's laws state that PDPA, that the law data should be stored locally. How do you work with them? You need to educate the regulators and tell them that yes, we will, and then work with AWS because you want to transform yourself. If you wait till regulators come and then say, hey, we will lay down the laws, etc., you will never transform. So sometimes transformation has to be in the gray areas, but you have to thread it carefully. You have to take regulators along. You should not err on this side. You should err on the side of caution. But you should make some tough decisions. We did all this. This is some of our this thing. And like I told you, learning and culture activities, right? The other key thing which you should understand is, I have some good news and bad news for you, right? The good news is your MTech is definitely valuable, guys. Whatever you're all studying girls will be definitely useful. I can guarantee you that. What's the bad news? Once you enter your workforce, it becomes useless. Because honestly, once you enter your workforce, at least for me, when I came, it really helped me. It was a good passport. It's a good passport. But then there are 500 other passports. And everybody has similar sets of credentials. Your MTech will help you to get a foot on the door. But once you get there, what next? So that's why you need this continuous learning. And that's something that you should lay emphasis on as you commence your careers, as you start this thing. For me, it's a learning every day. As much as I say it, I sometimes make a conscious effort to learn something new, read on the job, train myself, go for external coaching. And sometimes I don't. And let me be honest about it. But incrementally, I started to measure. And again, sharing my own experience. Every day I want to learn something. I was very ill-disciplined. I am ill-disciplined because my priorities are much more. But then I started to make it to every week. And then I'm able to see progress. But then I'm not, eventually I want to get to every day. That's still my goal. I'm not able to achieve. But what I'm trying to share with you is you should start off with every day. Because once you do that, what I've seen, the most successful people are those who learn incrementally every day. However, whatever position you are in, I still code. I'm still pretty hands-on, whether it is technology, this thing, I manage my whole team. I'm pretty close to technology. I still need to know stuff. And it's not, I'm not doing it just to prove a point. It's because I just want to know what's being done. So at every level, right, I see more and more people getting distanced away. But I personally think you need to get closer as you go up. When I say closer, you don't need to obviously know that, but you need to understand the workings of it. So continue learning. I think this is which we do also, like I said, right, from our banks, this is what we did for our bank. We tried to upskill the whole organization. We did for some people. We tried. We want to do it at scale, and we want to definitely see how we can get more and more people trained. What I know in the beginning, right, I think I spoke about what was the key point I told about transformation? What did I say? Value creation. Good. I'm happy. At least my 45 minutes speech has not gone in vain, right? Close to an hour. So I've come to the last couple of slides of my presentation and then I'll answer questions. But what we also are doing is continuously measuring value. And I'm going to share some of the value that we have created. Again, by no means exhaustive, no means great. Honestly, if you ask me, I would be the first most critical person. I think we have not created value. My boss would say the same thing. And every one of us in the management team would see the same thing because I think we can do far better than this. We're just scratching the surface. But are we happy with this created? Of course. Are we proud? Yes. But can we do better? Jolly well, we can do better. So let me talk about some of the successes that we've created, right? Value that we created. I won't say success. That's why it's important to distinguish value. We've got 90%, which is almost digitally customer base. Imagine having so many people who interact with us digitally, right? So we are definitely acquiring most of our customers digitally for a country like Vietnam. And that's from that perspective. You may think, what does 55 do? Because Singapore, 98% people are banked already. So please understand this from a frontier market, not from a mature market. Singapore means it will be different. We acquire 55% of our customers digitally. We provision our environments much faster because when you want to spin up or spin down clusters, when you want to launch new environments, 30 times faster than before. Earlier, time to say yes. When people wanted to take loans, you might find this funny, but in Vietnam and in some markets, even mature markets in India and in other markets in Europe, to say yes, when I say yes for a loan, their credit decisioning would take days and weeks. If you're an SME business, you have to give your working capital, you have to give your profit loss statements, your cash flow statements, tons of documentation. It would take weeks. We changed that to seconds. We changed that to hours and minutes, depending on obviously how good your data and what documents you give. But that is a big move for us, right? And obviously this is a good value creation, but eventually we have to retain these people and how well these people skilled they become. More people are getting trained on data and IT. We are shifting our workforce. There are more and more tellers. If you look at the typical branch or typical banking, you will have people who are, and even Singapore government is doing that. The whole Singapore retrain, the Singapore workforce, that's being pushed by the government. And of course, we're doing it and and that's transformation. And that's what the government talks about, SG transformation. It's a very forward-looking government. And I think that's exactly what we're trying to do in the bank also. Earlier, if you wanted to do gamification, it would take weeks and months because you have to buy hardware, bank, you have to get approvals, etc. We short-circuited. Am I proud of 3 weeks? I want to do it in 3 days. Why should it take 3 weeks? Let's push the boundaries. Possible, but again, we need to think through. Our loan installment volumes are growing. And most importantly also, when we look at transformation, right, it's very easy to say I'm getting transformed, etc. Are the employees actually becoming more productive? Are we able to generate value with the same set of people? So if you look, one of the key parameters is we started off with 12,500 employees in 2020. We are now in 2023. We are 11,800. More or less, we have kept headcount flat or small, but we have launched new product. We have not cut people or this thing. What I'm trying to tell you is we are able to, our income has almost tripled. So with the same set of people, we have hired more people. I also joined this thing. There are many people I have joined only in the last 3 years. Our management team has come on board the last 3 years. We've launched new divisions. The whole idea is how people have become more productive. I'm able to generate more value. There's a 40% in this thing. So which means, what does it show? People are doing, someone said about that, doing more with less. He was saying, that's exactly what we are measuring. These are all, like I said, this is not exhaustive, but these are some examples of how we are creating value, we are measuring value. There are multiple yardsticks, but these are just some examples. What are some of the lessons learned? I mean, I've spoken about it at various, during my presentation here, I had spoken about it. But I think I'm not going to rehash most of these. But like I told you, if I had to put it into 3 big buckets, it would be your approach, getting your vision, getting your strategy, getting your intent absolutely clear. And don't be half-hearted. Because again, for me, this is my second or third transformation. I've seen time and again where I've failed more than I've succeeded. I'll be very honest with you. And I don't say that to wear a badge. But one of the biggest lessons from that has been that you try to actually do stuff with knowing that you will fail. That itself is half the battle lost. Half-hearted. Let's go there. Anyhow, we are going to fail. So let's start that. Transformation is not easy. Like I told you, it's not. So you need to really get in with a positive intent to make sure. Start small. Very important. Get some small victories. Create the runway. Second is commercialization, right? The big block. I mean, I've spoken enough about value creation. You have to extract business. So you'll see me repeating this again and again because transformation, digitization is all about value creation. I mean, cloud, if you want to go, do you want to refactor or you want to do a lift and shift? You can talk about all those, but what exactly are you going to do? Is it cloud first or a cloud fit strategy? Because people talk about, let's move to cloud. I've transformed myself. No, you only increased your cost or reduced in some cases, mostly increased or kept it flat. You must be willing to change the operating model. The third pillar is, I call it FinOps, but I don't have a better word for it, but eventually it's all about making sure your costs are within control. As we do this journey, it's easy to buy new products. It's easy to buy new toys. And it's easy to even create products to an extent. But how do you keep it all under control? Very, very difficult. How do you measure to make sure that you are actually creating the right cost framework? It's critical to embed commercial governance right from day one. You have to manage costs and there's a continuous trade-off. There's no right and wrong answer. Can we run at 150 kilometers? If you give me another 2 instead of 11,000 people, if you give me 15,000 people, can we make more money? Yes, you can. But is that what you want to do? What's the trade-off? So there's always this continuous tension between spending more, doing more, and then creating value with what we can. And these are not easy decisions, right? But you need to embed that lessons of thinking. This is my last slide. I promise to stop after this. As I said, some people, and I think whether it is banking or any industry, you said, oh, buying new technology is not transformation. I launch a new app, that's not transformation. Many people say, I've transformed, Excel is there. Even when I joined, I thought if I move away from Excel, I have transformed. No. I think the key is all about value creation. If there is one thing you need to keep in mind, the mantra is all about value creation. Obviously, culture is very, very important because culture, I mean, you all know this, eat strategy for lunch, breakfast, dinner, drinks, appetizer, whatever you want. It's tough. But if you have the right sponsorship and if it comes from the top, I think you need to continue this journey, right? And while you have this whole thing about data, I think the biggest thing people stop with data is talk. Can I get more insights? Can I get more insights? And analysis paralysis. It stops and starts here and finishes. If you move here, you consider success. In my view, it is still very, very in the beginning stage because you need to convert that to action. You need to then measure that action and then you need to refine that action. And this is a continuous and virtuous cycle. This is what machines are far better than humans. We start here and we hardly get here. And once we get here, we don't do this. The pot gets more and more diluted. And that it's not just banking, every industry. If you ask me, what's the lowest hanging fruit you all can solve as you enter your new workforce or once you finish your MTech, etc. See if you can close this loop. Can you make this a virtuous loop? That is, again, it's a challenge. I mean, whoever does this well, that's why LLMs, AI, RNN, CNN, all this is taking off because they are able to do this much faster. Supervised learning, unsupervised learning, well, it's simple. It stares everyone on the face, but it's very, very difficult to look at this. So good luck to all of you. I know you're all embarking on this thing, but like I said, right, I think I left with one of my favorite quotes. And I mean, you're all students here in some form, shape. But I'm sure as you embark on your journeys, as you complete MTech, get into jobs, you'll all become C-suite leaders. But don't stop learning. Thank you very much.